Whether you're looking to build or buy, this episode is for you. Today, we're joined by Sharee from Toop. Sharee is joining Steve and myself to answer some questions about the difference between buying and building and about the real estate industry today.
Sharee from Toop, thank you for coming in.
Thanks,
and
Steve.
having a chat with us today. Obviously, we know each other. We've done quite a bit of business together.
Yes.
So today, me and Robbie thought we'd get you in for a bit of a chat.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions we get, I think, as first home or sales consultants is, should I build or should I buy established? So today we thought it would be great to chat with you a bit about that topic and get the established or buying ready-made, I suppose, in the market. So before we start, a bit about yourself, Sharee. Tell us your story.
Sure. Well, I am from a banking and finance background. I was a business banker with the CBA prior to going to real estate. I had 4 children under the age of 4. So then I gave away my banking career and became a full-time mum for 9.5 years.
Wow.
So back into real estate, which is something I never saw myself being in real estate or being a real estate agent. Just wasn't really on my radar until a really good friend of mine suggested it. And that's how I ended up here today.
Beautiful. And Toop. So how long have you been with Toop currently?
Always. So Toop has been my only agency I've been with. And it is a great brand to work for. You know, we are a really tight family, 25 agents all working together as a team, which is really a great environment to be in this business.
Absolutely. And Toop, if we talk Toop specifically, they've been quite iconic as a brand and agency in South Australia for quite a period of time. I've had the privilege of working with you and I think Bronte as well. I think he did an auction for me.
Yes, he did. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've had a personal experience working with you and I continue to work with you because of, I suppose, the experience I have.
Yeah.
So for us, I think question is, should I buy established or should I build? In terms of established, what would be in your mind if I'm looking to, first-time buyer, sort of deciding between the two, what would be some of the benefits of buying established?
Yeah, look, I think when you're a first home buyer and you're looking at obviously a new property or established, you're looking at established properties are generally a little bit more in a city. So, right out to potentially Modbury, Golden Grove, even down south where you're looking, towards Morphett Vale and the like. So there is a lot of opportunity for people to get into the market and they can tend to move in straight away unless there's a lease in place or something along those lines. So that just gives them that opportunity to then purchase the property, move in, and then get right into the rhythm of making those repayments, enjoying the home straight away, and making any future plans for changes that they might need to make or make. When it comes to building, you'll find that within the metro Adelaide positions, there is not a great deal of land development opportunity. So the infrastructure that we see quite a dominant area right now, which I'm finding is huge growth, is the Angle Vale, Buckland Park sort of area, through those areas where there's been so much development that people have purchased land. Obviously, at that time, there was no concessions on stamp duty, so that saved them quite a bit in relation to the stamp duty component of the purchase. And then they get to choose exactly what they put into their property, and it makes a difference. And I've seen some really varied selection choices throughout that. But then they have the opportunity for growth as well, because obviously they're purchasing the land in a different market to when it's completed and then potentially selling as well.
Absolutely. So I think you sell land as well as selling established as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of selling land, is it very different to selling an established property?
Yeah, look, and there's different ways that we go about it. So sometimes we will just sell land, and that could be that a builder has bought a site and put that into 2 blocks, and they may just want to offset, some of that debt, so they will sell the land component. Sometimes they'll sell that land component and then have a building clause on that where they are required to then build with that particular builder, and sometimes not. It just depends on the circumstance. And often we do get a lot of traction on land. However, we are finding that in the market right now, having a tangible new product is something that people are looking for a little bit more often, because they do want to move in and know exactly what they're ending up with, at the end of the build.
Yeah, you raise a good point. And I think to that, Robbie, as well, we do a lot of what we call house and land packages, and for us as when we're doing new construction, buying land that's vacant that sometimes isn't even available is very hard for the client to imagine. So for us doing a house and land package, I think sometimes you guys can go as far as doing renders and some virtual stuff as well to sort of give the client as much of a realistic view of what that house is going to look like on the land. Do you find it is, when you're selling land to someone that's probably never built before, is it a bit of a hard sell in terms of trying to get them to understand what they can put on the block? Is that a barrier for them to buying land?
Absolutely. And it's really hard for people to see space. And like you said, we will often get a mood board, which gives you all of the textures, you know, your carpets, your paint colours, what the stone feels like and what it looks like. And, you know, that definitely does help with, you know, the visual aspects. However, when you know, if you were to say to somebody that your backyard is going to be, you know, 8 metres by 3 metres, until they are in that space, that feels small to them because they can't actually see what that would feel like. However, it's not really that small because it's a nice piece of grass and, you know, you could put yourself a table out there or what have you. Definitely the vision, having something that people can walk through, like display homes and things like that, definitely helps. And even just to put the colour palettes together, because it is, even for myself, like often I've walked into the properties that we've worked together on and I've gone, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Had I have seen this on a mood board, I would never have chosen it. And just the final product is something that you obviously get with experience and you've got that vision. Whereas for me, I still don't have that, even though I love it when I walk in there.
Yeah, it's certainly a barrier. And I think even with us, with ABC and with Metricon, we do a lot of the stuff we're doing now online is trying to create as much as virtual tours online. We've got certain online, you can actually choose your colours and get a real good view of what the house will look like with the colour palettes that we've got. So yeah, I think trying to go from established where you can actually see what you're buying versus trying to imagine it can be very challenging for people sometimes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So they're the sort of things I think that's happening in the marketplace at the
But
moment.
it's also when you talk about house sizes in general, you know, the feel that I get with people when they talk about building, you tell them a measurement of the room and straight out, like you said, they think it's small until they actually walk into a display home. They're like, oh, okay, this is not too bad at all. When they can see when we furnish a property, can they fit a queen size bed in there as well? They're the main things we all sort of see as well. How big's my bedroom? Well, go have a look.
Yeah, and in my experience too, I think when we're sitting down with first-time buyers trying to get into the market, first, and they ask me that question, the first thing is, well, really what's going to be dictated as to whether you buy, establish or you build really comes down to some of the incentives in the space, like stamp duty exemptions, a first-time buyers grant, help schemes, shed equity schemes. So there's a lot of incentive in the marketplace to build, and the reason for that is really to do with the supply and demand thing, and also about making the economy turn, but also trying to get that supply and demand right so that we got as much supply to meet the demand. So for me, it's really sometimes from a client's perspective, they have to build because financially it suits them. And if you've got the ability to buy established, then people tend to want to have something now. So I think you mentioned it before, Sharee. I think what we're starting to see more and more now is the ready-made product coming to market. And what that does for people is gives them the ability to access all the grants, which is fantastic, as well as have a house that they can see and feel, and it is new. Because that's one of the things, isn't it? Buying new versus buying established, there can be some things that you have to consider with established as well.
Absolutely. And what I've found just in the last, especially 18 months, but previously, say in the last 4 to 5 years, we did do often a lot of contracts where people were buying in, the land and entering into the build contract with the builder so almost the builder has that option then to sort of hedge the bet in the market that they're getting a really good price for a product that's in progress. And then they've obviously got that tangible asset at the end that people can walk through, feel the environment, the light, furnished spaces, all those things. So they always would tend to do it that way, whereas we're finding now, and especially because of what consumers are after and the changes that people want to put into their own properties, if they are building, that we aren't doing a lot of those anymore, and we tend to just sell that final product that's completed by the builder. So they will generally hold on to both properties until the end.
Great.
It's just a different strategy.
The other thing that separates probably for us compared to buying established locations. Now, people that we deal with, generally first home buyers, they want to be somewhere like here. Well, you're not going to build, are you? You're going to buy something established.
Yeah.
I also think the way the market's grown so rapidly in the last couple of years is that we are seeing new areas growing. So yes, with what we call infill or close to the city, like I said before, there's not much land. So people are forced, not only budget-wise, to go further out, but where the land is actually accessible and available. So we will see areas starting to grow. We spoke about Mount Barker, and obviously you spoke about Anglevale as well. There's lots of areas where land's coming online. From your perspective, Sharee, is there any particular area that you've seen that's been more popular lately in the market?
Look, not overly. I suppose I have, just by chance, I've been working a little bit more in the north at the moment. And obviously I've got some property coming up in Mount Barker area. But what I'm finding is that a lot of the people that are looking in those areas are really enjoying the infrastructure, the parks, the schools, the new shopping centres. It is actually, like, I don't know if you've ever been for a drive out there. I know you have, but it is actually amazing to see. Everyone is very house proud. You know, everyone's very friendly. It's great. It's, you know, like Ramsay Street, you know, every time. And everyone is very grateful for being in such a nice area. And a lot of people do work in the city or they work at Port Adelaide from Anglevale in particular, because I've just recently been working in that area. And everyone's happy with that commute because it's very easy. You know, the Southern Expressway is going to be amazing all the way through, you know, right through that north-south connector, you know, the Eastern Freeway. It's just about the infrastructure and what's around you. And
absolutely,
going back to property, there's a lot of land holding in Adelaide in the metro area, but it's from our aging demographic is what I find. And where we're sort of, and this is my personal opinion because I tend to do a lot with estates and, you know, just downsizing people as well. You know, they're often on large land holdings that can sometimes go, you know, 1 into 2 generally, or 1 into 3, sometimes a little bit more. And that because they are holding their properties due to, you know, just their financial position, they've probably lived there since the 60s, they might have built that home, you know, through Payneham or, you know, just those inner city areas, they will eventually come around into the market for house and land packages. But just at the moment, it feels that they're more on the outer skirts of Adelaide and in those new infrastructure areas.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. I think I'm a born and bred Adelaide boy. I think you are as well, Robbie, and I think Sharee as well. And I think we've seen Adelaide really change a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of infrastructure projects going on. I think we've got a good government in place that's really pro the building industry, pro business, pro growth. And we're seeing a lot of that coming into play now. So we are starting to see the infrastructure, even though it's been lacking, we're seeing a very big investment into infrastructure, which is creating new suburbs, creating new opportunities for everyone. For me, what I see a lot too is that if you've been born and bred in Adelaide, you tend to look at a particular area and go, that's my area. You don't want to move out of that. So
I'm like that too,
So what I'm personally seeing a lot of, and I'm not sure if you're seeing this as well, is if I've been born and bred in Rostrevor, all of a sudden I'm looking to other areas now. I call it like migration. We're starting to migrate. So I might have to migrate to Mount Barker, or I might have to migrate, if I'm in Modbury, I might have to migrate out to Anglevale. I'm starting to see that more and more now, and people becoming more, I suppose, acceptable and accepting of that. Are you seeing that as well?
Look, I definitely see that. And one of the biggest things, like, so for example, just a recent property that I had in Anglevale, and they built the home and they lived there, you know, for, you know, 3 years or so, and they made a very good investment in that. They bought the land when there was no road, you know, they just bought the allotment and then they had to wait for the infrastructure to go in, and then they built, and now they've sold. But when you move into these places like Mount Barker, like Anglevale, you know, these new hubs, they tend not to move out of there too much. Like, so their schools are local, their friends are local, parents move in, you know, close by to support them through that. And a lot of people are coming from Tea Tree Gully, you know, the outskirts of the northeast, you know, and you'll find that probably with Mount Barker as well, that they're sort of coming from, you know, close proximity, but just a different lifestyle, whether potentially in an older home, or not quite a big land size, because there's some big allotments going around that, the new developments through. They're like, you know, 600 to 800 square metres, which is unheard of. Now 400 is a big block. Like if you've got 400 square metres, you're excited, you know. So,
Yeah, so shifting a little bit too, I think, so obviously from my perspective, I've been in the market where I've looked for an agent to represent selling my property. There's certain things that I look for an agent. Hence, you've worked with, we've worked with each other quite a few times. So there's obviously certain things that I think you do very well. So what tell us what you think makes a good agent, or some things you would want to see in an agent.
Yeah, look, and especially for the first home buyer market, like really importantly, just having someone that's really honest and transparent. You'll find that it is so emotionally taxing for people because, you know, if they're trying to get in, they're putting everything in to purchasing property, getting a building inspection, you know, going through all of the processes to get yourself into a position to be able to put your best foot forward, and they're missing out. It's really disheartening. And the thing is that as they are missing out on property, the market is moving faster and faster away from them. And especially in that under, you know, $1.5 million market, you know, first home buyers now really are looking at about $1 million. Like that's just the reality of it. And it's not uncommon to see that we are selling property to first home buyers well above that. But it just depends on everyone's financial situation. So for me, I like transparency, direct communication. I'm a negotiator. I'm not really an auction agent. I do auction, of course, because sometimes that's preferred in different circumstances. But generally speaking, I prefer to negotiate because I feel that I can give the buyer that better intel without obviously disclosing, you know, things that I shouldn't, but with just giving them that best direction. And often, even though they haven't won the property from me in this particular instance, they will call me when they have actually found that property, and they'll be so thankful for the help on the journey. And sometimes I can even help them to negotiate with another agent just to try and get them in there, but which it doesn't bother me. As long as I'm invited to the weddings and the christenings, I'm fine.
Well, you made a really good point, because we've done private treaty before, we've done auction, and sometimes we're having the conversation between does this property suit auction or does it suit private treaty? For me, I do like private treaty in general. I think auctions can be very stressful, not only for the purchaser but also for the vendors. But I think one of the main things that I saw with some of the stuff that I've done is that ability to have a negotiation with a particular buyer and sort of understanding what they need to make the transaction work, but also what the vendor needs. So the auction sometimes doesn't allow for that. Certainly there are some benefits to it. So for me, I think you've got to also consider when you're choosing to go auction or private treaty, how are you as the vendor going to feel being able to go through that? Because it's quite stressful, auctions, very stressful.
It's really stressful. And the thing is that another thing that I find is really important in the market is that if you have a volume agent, they will always auction because they don't have time to spend the negotiation, because the negotiation takes time. And sometimes, you know, I can be often I work until 10, 11 at night, and that's just normal. My family's used to it, but you just need to be able to have that communication open. Now, if I'm selling anywhere more than, I sell around about 60, just a little bit under 60 properties a year on and off market. But if I'm selling anything more than that, I don't, like, it's so hard to have the time. And that is when you'll find that high volume agents will tend to be auction agents because they will not necessarily not do a great job, but that is just their method of transaction.
So they specialise in it a bit more.
They do. And it's just it's a volume. So for me, like you said, like in this market right now, people do have a finance clause. People do want to get a building inspection. People do need a bit of encouragement, you know, in, you know, where their position is and how we can better that, you know, and just even giving them the right advice in relation to finance advice, not from me, because I don't give finance advice, but I can point them in the right direction. Just to make sure that it's just a second opinion, and it could be consolidating certain debt, credit cards, personal loans, car loans, that actually take a lot, because they're short-term high interest generally, that can actually take a lot of your borrowing power, you know, away from you if you don't, you know, look at all of your aspects of your finances. So that's just one of the things that I think as a young buyer in the market, that is really important to make sure you're understanding what those things mean when you're borrowing, you know.
And I think for me, when I'm selecting, because like I said, we've worked together a few times, for me, when I'm selecting someone to sell my property, I'm really looking at the agency in terms of how they reflect in the market and also how the agent is reflecting the market. So for me, I want a an agent and an agency that's going to reflect my property in a way that aligns with me. And I think transparency is the big one. But I also think too, why I've gone with you plenty of times, or nearly every time, is one, once I engage you, I know you're always going to be fair and honest around what it's going to cost me to sell. You're going to be fair and honest around how you value the property, so I can make some really informed decisions. Okay, this is a realistic number. I also think for me as well, you represent my property well. And I think for me also, you do consider the buyers. And for me, that's also important because ultimately it is a transaction between a purchaser and a seller, or a buyer and seller. And so for me, it's really about representing my property in its best light, but also getting the best outcome for the buyer as well. And I think for me, you just take control of all of that, and I don't have to worry about it, which is great. So for me, that's what I love about using you as an agent. So I think those are the things that matter for me. Robbie's going to hopefully sell something soon. He's doing a bit of
no
buy,
pressure.
bit of buy, but maybe a bit of selling soon as well.
Why would, I guess when someone approaches to sell, what would be the main questions they ask you?
So a lot of people always ask around strategy, and one of the biggest things I find that in appraisal interviews, the emotional value of the vendor is always going to be different to my, comparable value to the market. Okay, so it is one of those things that I find really, that it just needs to be talked about on the table, because my job, or the way that I see it, is that your value is what we work towards, and it's about making sure that we're all on the same page. So for choosing an agent and actually making that next step with the agent, you just have to be really comfortable, and it has to be something that you feel that there is a synergy, because it's not always easy. Like, selling property does not always, lots of people say, oh, anyone can sell houses these days. And yeah, absolutely they can, but it's at what level and how is that transaction and that experience, how does that feel to everybody? Do you feel like you got the best price, or do you feel that, we could have done something different or better? And the feedback from the vendor is really important, because often I've only seen the property maybe 4 times when I've gone into the property. And it's really important that, we can just communicate and ask any questions. And often, things, are asked that I wouldn't have any idea, because people ask, different questions, and different things matter to different people. But I think it's just one of those things that and everyone chooses different agents for different reasons. So some people just want to auction, get it done, unconditionally done. I'm a bit more of an emotional agent, so I get right in there. I like to meet the buyers. I like to be there at handover. I just weddings. I christenings, babies' births, baby showers, all kinds of things. Weddings, So
you raise a point there in what you're saying as well. So sometimes we talk about, let's say we've got a property in Victor Harbour, and you're located, say, in Norwood. Is it always best in your mind to get an agent that's local to the area?
That's a good question.
Or are you, do you think that it doesn't really matter, as long as the agent's good, they can sell in any area?
Well, again, sometimes I feel, so for me, my business, even though I work in a northeast, that's my corridor, that's where I live, of Adelaide, but my business is based almost solely on referral, and that will be from vendors that I've had previously that have been recommended to me by my accountant, or by a friend, or by someone I've sold for before, or whatever it might be. So you'll see when you look at my little map of what I've sold, I will be right down to Merino, all the way up to Gawler, and all the likes in between. So sometimes we can
busy weekend for you, a lot of travel.
Gets my hours up on my driving, that's for sure.
Big thing for us as well. Like, we deal with agents when we're looking for a land for a buyer, and I guess, like you said, also just the communication as well. Like, one, how long does it take to an agent to get back to somebody? But 2, how well do they actually help you along that way? My experience I've had recently with an agent, gave me no answers whatsoever, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I'm also trying to help you sell your product, and you're not even helping me. So again, word of mouth is a big thing too.
Well, it is a very competitive market. So it's very competitive, and everyone's, I think, working really hard. So sometimes, the level of demand and requirement from the agents is obviously on the increase as well. I think, going back to my point, I think you want an agent that's going to represent the vendor in the best possible light, and the property in the best possible light. And some agents do that better than others.
And that's a perfect example, because if you are the vendor and you are trying to get in contact with your agent and they're not calling you back, what are they doing to your buyer? Because you're the one paying them,
Yeah.
not the buyer. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those things again, like it's all about the behaviors. And I think that, you know, yes, everyone, like for me, I'm very passionate about being at every open, and I'm the only person you talk to about your campaign. So that's just the way I like to run it. Now, that doesn't work for everybody, but I just manage my business. That's
a really good question too, isn't it? Sometimes I'll engage you as my agent, but then I'll get maybe an associate. So it's really important to be clear up front and saying, hey, if I select you as my agent, will you be doing the opens for me as well? So that's important to know.
And I think it is. I think that if you call me, and you know that you can call me anytime, because we've often talked when you're on the way to the footy or whenever it is.
Sometimes we're at the footy together.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. Then we can talk just freely, right? That's good. But the thing is that you can just call, and even if it's just on your mind and you just want to know that, how do we go with that guy that came through? I know it was only 3 o'clock. Have you heard anything back? Not just yet, but let me chase him up tomorrow. Or, you know, just those little communication things. And I know we're a bit more cooler. We like to call each other because it's quick and easy over texting. So if we start a text, we'll just, oh, hey, you know, because it's just quick and easy, and you can hear my tone.
It's all communication as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think, Rob? Anything else from Sharee from an established perspective?
I guess probably a great question. How do you see the difference between the market 12 months ago and what it looks like in the next 12 months?
Yeah. Well, do you know, we keep waiting for everything to sort of just relax a little bit. And I'm pretty sure that going to the meeting or into our, you know, beginning year, like, you know, transformation day. Last year, 2025, we were like sort of bracing ourselves, like, you know, things are going to probably quieten down a little bit. You know, the market's going to get a bit tighter. And it seems to have just kept going in price. And then coming into just before Christmas, it seemed a little bit quieter. It just felt a little bit different. But now, again, it's going back. There is still some growth. There is some amazing results happening out there. And, you know, not everything has to be a suburb record, but there's some amazing growth in the market. And sometimes it just stuns you, because especially in that first home buyer and in that market where people are, you know, the market is getting away from them and they're trying to get in. I just feel that is where the growth is, you know, like even in like through Modbury Heights, that is just unprecedented growth I've just found through there. And a lot of multi-generational living where people are, you know, helping their kids buy their first home and then coming in to help them with their children and things like that. And it's such a great hub with all the schools and the like in that Modbury Heights area. But it's one of those things that I do think that it is still going to grow. There are a lot more interstate investors coming back that I'm talking to, and that's just only from my experience. I'm not saying that that's what is happening, but I'm just saying that I'm getting more and more.
We're getting a lot more phone calls from interstate investors as well, probably more than I've seen in the last 10 years. I've had more phone calls from people from interstate wanting to invest in it, and people moving back as well.
Yes, and there is a lot of people moving back, and I've found quite a few people coming back actually from Queensland and Sydney, just because, you know, it's very expensive, you know, in those pockets as well. So, and just lifestyle. There's a lot of a new business coming into Adelaide, you know, with the shipbuilding and everything. So.
Yeah, and again, I think it just goes back to the government with a lot of policy and a lot of business growth in South Australia as well.
But it's been amusing though, like the demand's been massive, and now developers are getting to a point, if you're an investor, we don't want to talk to you as well. You know, there's been that many investors coming in, now they don't want to be dealt with.
Yeah, and also I think in the last couple of days we've seen obviously petrol prices on the increase. We've seen interest rates go up as well.
Yeah.
So it's still early on in the piece, but have you sort of seen anything from conversations you're having the last week or so around that sort of change in the market as well?
Yeah, look, I think that what's happening at the moment with the petrol and obviously everything that's going in overseas, a lot of people, including myself, I'm not travelling now. I'm supposed to be going away in 3 weeks, and I've changed my mind. I didn't like the idea of potentially not being able to get home with 4 children and, you know, 2 businesses. So we decided that we would just like wait and see on everything really, because just in that last month, things have changed. The petrol is, I mean, you know, it's adding to inflation. It's extraordinary how, you know, everyone is so reliant on it, and it is a really big, you know, normally real estate's a topic of conversation at the dinner table. I think it's all about petrol right now, and you know, and the interest rates as well. Yeah. So it is one of those things that it is just unknown, and I think it wasn't anticipated.
Yes,
all of this as well. So I think we just have to. Whenever interest rates go up, though, the market does have a little panic, for probably 3 to 4 weeks, and it does go a little bit quieter, and then obviously everything that's going on with overseas. So just have to wait and see on that one, I think.
Yeah, for me, I think it's still a robust market. I think for people that have, with interest rates going up, if you own a property, it hurts you. If you don't own a property, you don't really feel it so much. So I think making a decision to enter the market, you can look at your budget and go, well, based on this interest rate, this is what I can afford. And normally banks have a bit of a buffer in there anyway. So I don't think it really matters too much for people that don't have a property. They tend to feel the petrol price going up more than the interest rate going up. And it does, I suppose, put a sort of question in their mind whether, do I wait or I don't wait? But I think ultimately, if you're still renting and you're looking to get into the market outside of it, I think it just comes down to affordability. So just always working with what's affordable for you.
But rental is so expensive now as well. Like I'm just amazed at the cost of renting. Like, and I think that if the biggest problem about first home buyers trying to get into the market is that deposit and having the deposit, because it's not only the deposit, it's the stamp duty that you need. And then obviously you need to have all your ongoings, which is going to be your council rates and your electricity, your water, gas, if you have gas, and all of the things that just, accumulate. Then your hot water service goes, and then as soon as you move in, no, that doesn't happen. But that's, but you just never know, because then you're also doing the maintenance on the property. So some investors say, into Adelaide say rent, or some say buy, or, everyone's got a bit of a different opinion. But I think if you have the will to get into your first home, then I think you have to make it happen. And it's generally by sacrifice. You have to not go out on Friday night and really just buckle down, because really that's what it's about.
Costs are going up regardless. So whether you're renting or whether you own your own property, costs are going up. So it's better to control your own costs, I suppose, with your own property. So sort of in closing, I suppose, Sharee, we always do a bit of a thing where we ask for a tip all right, from the expert in that particular industry. So in terms of, if I'm a first home buyer looking to buy established, I've never really done it before, it can be quite daunting and overwhelming. So potentially I'm looking at putting an offer in for the first time, I'm looking at negotiating for the first time. I've never done it before, and I could be putting offers in, and obviously there may be multiple offers or lots of people with inquiry on that property. So what would you say as a real estate agent selling the property, what can buyers do to get themselves in the best possible position to secure that property over perhaps any other offer that's in there? What are some of the things that they can say and do?
Yeah, look, I think that it's always making sure that you know your personal affordability. Okay, I think that's really important for people, just to know their affordability, not what the bank tells you that you can borrow, but where you're comfortable, so that when you put your offer down, that it's very genuine. Also, really open the communication with your agent over putting in your offer, and let them know if you do want to get a building inspection. Often we don't put it in a contract, but we allow that time to get them done in the cooling off. And if there's anything that needs to be talked about, then we just open that there as well. But just be transparent about those things when you're putting your offer in. If you do have finance, maybe attach your approval. It doesn't have to tell us what your maximum borrowing is, but just, your approval information, just so that we can see that you're genuine, you're researched, and that you know what you're doing going forward. It is tricky, because often there can be, like, we've had a property that had, I think we had maybe 17 offers on the property. And it was just
that's quite a few offers.
It's a lot of offers, and they were varied, and they can be varied within 100,000, and if not more sometimes. But
did price ultimately get that? So does price always win out?
No, not always, and it depends on what the vendor wants on terms, because depending on the term, or the settlement term, or whether it's unconditional, or whether we've got a finance clause, but it's just dependent on a valuation, and that's all about uncovering that with the broker, and that's what the agents do. But it's sometimes, like, I've got some vendors that just really need a long settlement because they've lived in a home for a long time, and they've not moved before. So they just need to, once they've sold the property, they just need time to make things happen after that and work out where they're going to go. So it's all about just what works, what works for everybody in making it come together.
Yeah, so in terms of what you're saying, Sharee, so that price doesn't necessarily always have to be the winning
it generally is, but not always.
Yeah, so it's really about understanding from a buyer's perspective, really asking enough questions of the agent to really understand what's important to the vendor. And if it is price, then focus on price. But if there is something else, to maybe look at that and see where you can maybe leverage something different versus price.
Absolutely. And it will be like, as an agent, I always go in knowing what and being quite, forefront coming with the settlement terms and what we're after. Because, if somebody wants to move in 30 days, then my vendor is not ready maybe for 90 or 60 or they're waiting for their property to settle or whatever it might be, then we're already doing a whole lot of work around something that we've got no intention of coming together. Do you know what I mean? So you just have to make sure that it's you put your best foot forward as a buyer. You be transparent about everything that you're comfortable with. You're welcome to always ask for a building inspection. You're always welcome to do this, but you just have to let us know. There's nothing worse than you've negotiated it all, and then something turns around. Oh, and I want to change the settlement, or I want to get a building inspection. But we have no problem with that. Yeah. But that also, we just need to know those things. That'll help you along the way.
And is there any advice for first-time buyers? Let's say that they've never negotiated before. Is there anyone that they can go see or speak to sort of help them?
They can call me. Especially if they're your clients, guys. That's fine. Just call me.
Exactly. Okay. So
Sharee.
Click the link below.
No, but look, and I think that I love seeing first-time buyers with their parents.
Yeah.
It's really nice that they've got the support and then they're asking all the questions, because it is nerve-wracking, and it's just nice to see that their support. So honestly though, I am not joking. Like, you can actually call me. That's not a problem. And just run me through what you're feeling, how you're, if you're feeling uncomfortable, uneasy, whatever it might be, and I'll just, it's probably something that's very common and that we see every day when we're doing transactions.
I think you raised a really good point, because we spoke about buyers agents before who will obviously take a fee to represent you. But there's a really good cost-effective way if someone knows an agent, or if you've got a relationship with an agent, or a friend of is an agent. Most agents, I've found, if you give them a call, are more than happy to give you some advice.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that advice can be actually free as well. You don't necessarily have to pay for someone, but just speaking to an agent saying, hey, can you help me, or what should I do in this situation, can be very helpful. Yeah,
exactly.
Similar things again, when people don't use us as a builder, we still get phone calls from someone else going to another building company just asking a question just for reassurance.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and I think that then creates the people around you, doesn't it? Like, that will be your clientele. They'll be the people that refer to you. That to me is the ultimate service piece. Like, just being there for people. And it doesn't matter if it's a relative, a friend, or anybody, because I do this every day, and I do this, in my sleep even. That's how much I do this. So for me, I'm learning all the time as well, because there's no two transactions that are the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it is really daunting when people, that even for older people that have never sold a property before, and that they're, they're leaving their family home, and children are leaving their family home, or whatever it might be. So it is really important. And buyers agents, they have a great position in the market, and we're seeing a lot more of buyer agent activity in Adelaide. However, predominantly they were Sydney, Melbourne based, and I think quite a bit in Queensland, but predominantly Sydney and Melbourne. But we're seeing, and they have, if you are wanting somebody to negotiate on your part, that is really where they play that comfortable role, because they are very skilled and experienced in that side of the transaction.
Yeah, so that also could be a helpful thing, is if you don't feel that you can negotiate the best deal for yourself, then look into maybe a buyer's agent as well. If you can't afford a buyer's agent or don't see the value in that, then certainly reach out to people that have either bought something or an agent, and then maybe get some free advice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you ask anyone, that most people would be great to, especially from our team. Our team's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sharee.
Good, no worries.
Got one last question. In your opinion, if you're a buyer looking for an agent to sell your home, what separates Toop and Toop from the rest of your competition?
Now that I do know the answer to that. So one thing that I am really proud about our team is that we are one team. So we are not a franchise. We don't have huge amounts of staff. We are family owned. Like, our Bronte and Jen are amazing. They're really great leaders. Jen is amazing in her marketing space, and we're so innovative. We are all there for each other. So what happens is, we will say, for example, we list your property. We will then present that to our whole team, and then that gives our team an opportunity to potentially bring their future vendors or current vendors to your property and create that off-market transaction, or even just give them the heads up that that property is coming, even if it's not going to be sold prior to going to market. So it's just, again, it comes together with that communication. Our brand is so established and very well known and very reputable. And what we tend to find is that your property will benefit from our brand. Our team, we're all the same. Everyone gets along. Everyone is good. Like if you approach any agent at any Toop Open and said, oh, I spoke with Sharee or, I met her, and they'd be like, oh, that's great. How'd you go with that? They just get into the conversation with you, So I think we're one all in a way, I find. And I just
I think just on that example, I think when you saw one of my properties, it wasn't selling for a period of time. I remember us having a conversation.
That was one auction.
Yeah, that's right. I know exactly. I'm still traumatized by the one auction, but
and we're still friends, so that's good.
Exactly. So, but I remember a distinct conversation where you, which I thought was quite. It blew me away in terms of the conversation where you said you actually presented what had happened on the auction day and everyone was across what happened. Everyone actually gave you feedback around that, and then you're coming back with possible solutions. So,
absolutely.
So for me, it was more about, okay, like I've got Sharee as my agent, but I've also got a lot of wealth of experience in the team that are also sort of chipping in to maybe give us another perspective, another angle. And we did sell it within a couple of weeks of the auction. Right. But like you said, it's just not one person. You've got a whole list of people that are sitting behind you that can help you with the transaction as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important, I think. So and that is why I love the brand and I love the team so much. So